Okay. Welcome to this At One with Animals Conversations to Inspire. I'm Janine Upheim, and these conversations are in support of the Global White Lion Protection Trust. Their website address is whitelions.org, but I'll put that in the description of this video. And there you can read about their mission and the several projects that they're working with at the moment. My guest today is the awesome Jules Chabeaux. Jules, thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for asking me.
So I'm just going to read out some of what you've done for the animals over the last 10 years. And I have to say, it feels more like this would take 20 years, not 10 years. It's amazing how much you've done. And this is just the highlights. And we'll talk about some of these a bit later. So you used to have a group, Voice of the Animals, which was for animal communication and practice. And on Facebook, you had 125,000 followers. You worked with Liz Mitten-Ryan's herd of horses in Canada on the 300-acre ranch, Gateway 2, with healing and communication. You were a finalist in the Chinese Pambassador competition in 2012 and worked with the giant pandas in Chengdu, China for over 3 weeks. You have a book, The Purpose of Species, Animal Messages for Humanity in 2012 and Beyond, which you launched in December 2012. I have the book here. Hopefully that's not back to front. You were the co-founder of the Awakening to Animals International conferences held in the UK in 2012 and 2013. You ran a nature coach practice where you coached one-to-one with people wanting to find their true nature in line with nature. You were a White Lion Leadership Academy participant in 2015. We could have met there, but we didn't.
Indeed.
Not yet. You took groups to the White Lions initially by yourself and then with the beautiful and wise Beth Duncan, helping people to connect with their hearts through animal communication and ancestral connection. You were the UK director of the White Lion Trust and the Linda Tucker Foundation and created the corporate version of the White Lion Leadership Program. Mm-hmm. And for a couple of years, you had a membership group on Facebook, Protecting Those We Love, Healing and Communication, Animal Communication, and offered a weekly guided visualization of a rebalanced world on Facebook for many months. And what you're doing now, which is absolutely amazing, you are an intuitive wildlife artist, co-creating wildlife art with species that come forward to work with you to share their energy and wisdom through your art. And you're going to share you're going to tell us about that and share some of your art with us a little bit later. So we met virtually through our dear mutual friend Beth Duncan after you two met in 2015 at the White Lion Leadership Academy, but then we only physically met. Now I'm not sure if it was 2017 or 2018 in Wales at the White Lion Leadership Retreat with Linda Tucker.
It was 2017.
It was 2017. You know, it's like we've lost a year, and I've lost my reference point.
Yeah.
But we actually connected a lot longer before that, and which you didn't remember, when I was on your book launch in 2012.
No, isn't that bizarre?
Yeah, so all the way back then.
I think I always felt like I'd always known you, because when we first met physically, I'd assumed in my brain that we already knew each other. I think it's just one of those things, isn't it, where you meet certain people and you just know them already. So
yeah, exactly.
Felt very much like that. Just the same as with Beth as well. It was like, oh, hello again.
Yes, nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm just going to read out what Jules has shared with me, her childhood and the things that have stood out for you in your childhood in relation to your animal and nature work. So you were born a nature girl. Loving animals and nature was and still is a core part of you and who you really are. You find being with animals and out in nature much easier than being around fellow humans. And I think that's very common for a lot of animal lovers. So did you live with animals when you were a child?
Not particularly, and much to my disgust, I think. I would have loved to have had animals, but my mum was very sensible, probably wise as a mother, not to take on lots of animals, because it's always the way, isn't it? The mums always end up caring for them. But no, we had a series of budgerigars. That was as far as we were allowed to go. So I did have some bird energy coming into my life, and they were very sweet. But I would have really loved a dog or a cat or a horse, you know. But,
one of each, couple of each.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little menagerie. But no, it was not to be.
And did you go out hiking with your parents, or did you have nature close to your house?
Well, we lived, for the first part of my childhood, we lived in a small town in Cambridgeshire. And that was, again, it was a very small town, so it was more like a village. So there was fields and farmland all around. So you just had to pop out of the front door, and within a minute you'd be sort of in the little woodland, or you'd be round near the farmer's field. So I would always be, you know, escaping out to go and find nature and find the animals, and did that frequently. So my mum and dad weren't particularly big hikers or walkers, so it just tended to be me nipping out and going around the corner and finding animals. And I think that's what I did. Anytime I had the chance, I would get out there. My mum was and is nature oriented, but not to the same degree as me. She's much more people oriented, but likes animals and nature. So it was nice to have that. So it was more me sort of nipping out. And then when we moved, when I was about 7, we again to a similar sort of small town with lots of fields and woodlands around. So I would do the same thing again. You know, I would just, whenever I felt like it and could get away with it, I'd just nip out and, you know, go and sit in the field watching the butterflies, or, you know, just listening to the birds and hoping to see, you know, different species. So it was always my escape, and thankfully my parents were quite okay about that. I guess it was back in the days when parents weren't quite so worried about their kids going out and about and trying to keep them indoors all the time, thank goodness.
And then they always knew where to find you if you weren't in your room or something. They'd have a couple of places they would know where they would find me, and to be honest, I think I used to just pretty much go out and then come back. I don't remember them having to drag me back in at all. I was always sort of coming back in by myself. So yeah, it was quite an easy arrangement. Yeah, but it's good you had access to, you know, to develop that connection. You know, even without having animals, like actually living with animals. I think, living in a sort of village environment, usually not far from some nature. Yeah, and there was always ponies around and about that I would delight in hanging out with, and just talking to. And I used to talk to them. I mean, I'm sure most children talk to animals when you know, and that's okay, and then you very quickly get told that that's not okay. If you're on your own.
Exactly,
you do whatever.
But now I'm well back into talking to all the animals. In fact, I'll go out on a walk and see somebody with their dog, and I'll speak to the dog first, then speak to the person.
Hello.
Look at you. They say, "Why are you talking to my dog?" And I say, "Why wouldn't I be talking to your dog?"
Whenever I'm driving and I see someone walking with the dog, you know, it's like I just see the dog. I just, you know, I'm sure that's, you know, some people think it's a bit strange, isn't it? No, not for us. This is normal.
No, it's totally normal.
Okay, so you remembered a lot about nature and animals and knew that they communicated instinctively, but as you said, were quickly told that this was not true, but that always felt wrong, obviously. So did you have anyone in your life when you were younger that was a bit more open-minded, that you could talk to about how you felt about nature and animals?
I think, as I say, my mum she was open-minded to it, and she definitely, she wasn't the main person that would say, oh, don't talk to the animals. It was more sort of school teachers and people that would say, you know, oh, don't be silly, you know, animals can't understand what you're saying, and you know, and that sort of shamed me then into thinking, oh dear, I can't do that, otherwise I get picked on, you know, and pointed out, which I hated. But she is very connected to nature, so she would happily be with me and talk about nature, but her heart wasn't quite as passionate about it as mine is. I think because she's got older, she's more nature and animal oriented, but her childhood was up in the Highlands of Scotland, and of course I used to go up there every year on my holidays, to spend time at my grandparents', which was on a big beautiful rural farming estate. And so again, I used to get that every year, which was just heaven for me. I'd just literally be out all day, you know, in the woodlands and running across the fields, and you know, finding all sorts of animals, and you know, stags, and from stags to, you know, the bull that used to jump over the fence regularly, and I was never frightened of him, and you know, and all the birds and animals. So I just, you know, was in my element. I just found it so much easier to be, you know, with them than these strange conversations, and conversations that didn't match the emotions that were behind what was being said, that I could just sense the, and I think a lot of children do naturally, they sense the incongruence, but it just seemed to be something in me that really didn't like that, and so I would just seek harmony by being with animals, because you don't get any of that with animals, do you? They're just who they are, and they're completely aligned with what they're demonstrating to you. So it was just a lot easier, and I just enjoyed it more.
And I also wonder if, you know, intuitively as kids, when you sense that, if there's kind of this feeling of, I don't want it to rub off on me, like resist it rubbing off, you know, what we know. Maya's just, okay, hi. Was that your cue? Who's her cue?
That's nice. Hello, sweetheart.
Hi.
Likes to come with her blessings, doesn't she? She's reminding you to say something.
Yeah, that thing that I didn't quite manage to understand from before. Yes, so I think you know, we know that it's going to rub off on us, you know, and on a soul level we know that, and I guess in a way part of it is you know, what we're here for, to go into, you know, behind the veil, and then, you know, through life come back out of it again, you know. So it's, but there's a resistance, you know. I just have this image now of you know, running through the forest barefoot, you know, mud up your legs, you know, just, you know, running free, and this, you know, complete resistance to, and, you know, understandable resistance to being, and I guess, you know, the British, and I mean, I grew up in Australia, and this was definitely there as well. So it's not only British, but there is this kind of real fear of actually showing the emotion that you're feeling, or even, you know, like talking about it, or talking in a way. So I feel like there's so much held back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And there's so much unconscious incongruency, because people will have been, again, it's the conditioning. You're conditioned that it's socially acceptable to do this and behave in this way, but it's not okay to do this, and this.
Yeah.
And so I think the Brits are very good at passive aggressive as well. So they'll say one thing but mean another.
Yeah.
It's a very funny list of things that Brits might say, but this is what they actually mean when they say it. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's very funny. And so,
oh no, I don't think I have actually. I can imagine that is very funny.
Very funny. And so there's this, it's just this say one thing but obviously be meaning something totally different. And I can remember, I mean, I must have had my face screwed up when I was little all the time. So I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. And I can remember very early memories of somebody saying something to me, and I was just thinking, that's complete nonsense, you know, it's just rubbish. And I was more frustrated by it, I think, because I just thought, I don't want to be around people that are saying one thing and meaning another, because it just is, you know, they keep telling me that it's not okay to lie, but all these people around me are lying all the time. And, you know, it was that sort of mismatch that I think frustrated me. And I just felt totally free when, like I say, when I was out with the animals and was able to just communicate with them in that alignment and feel completely at ease with them, you know, and not out of sorts, because it always made me feel out of sorts, you know.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to contradict what I said just before about, you know, that we're meant to sort of go behind the veil, and actually, no, I think that's wrong, because I think, you know, I don't know, I don't want to say the word purpose here, but it's like, if we're strong enough, if our soul is strong enough and has enough stamina, then we can actually get through, still have that awareness that that is what, you know, that is kind of wrong, in that people are sort of fake. But you know, and then I guess the point then is to actually try to live authentically, while knowing a majority of people don't actually know their own truth.
Yeah, and it's also about compassion as well, because there's a reason behind all of what we see going on in the human world today, and no matter how awful it is, you know, I don't believe that people are just born to be unhelpful, unkind people. I think we're all struggling, and I think as the evolution progresses at the moment, it's getting more and more intense, and the struggles becoming more polarized. But learning how, from a child being very intolerant of it and almost like, oh no, I can't bear this, you know, and coming into adulthood and still feeling that way, and now, you know, in my half century, sort of thinking, well, actually, you know, I need to be more compassionate and realize that everybody's suffered traumas of different sorts, and we've all had conditioning thrust on us, and it doesn't condone the actions, but it gives an explanation. So I'm certainly not there, but I'm aware, I'm getting more and more aware of it, and thinking, well, actually the animals are beautiful teachers, and they're such powerful allies for us that we really need to be paying close attention to. But as people, we're here. I mean, one of my beliefs about people being here is that we create this push and pull, because out of that comes creation. And we're, as a species, I think one of our key purposes is to co-create. And as a pure thing, that's so beautiful. But when you start breaking nature's laws and doing all the things that we have been doing as a species for hundreds of years now, we veer off and start creating problems and suffering. And so, but in its purest form, a beautifully balanced human being who's completely, you know, authentic and in their heart and compassionate, would only create beautiful things that would enhance everybody else's experience, whatever species. And that's the true beauty of being a soul in a human body. But we're obviously a long way out of alignment on that in you know, the majority of cases. But again, is that a mistake? I'm not sure it is a mistake, but it's something that we really need to wake up to and get back in alignment as much as we possibly can in our short lifetime, so that we do start to contribute in a connected way. So it's a balancing act, and obviously I spent quite a lot of my life working with people, and so there is a lot to be done in that area. But my preference is still with the animals, because they're fab, aren't they?
No, it's just. I remember when I was a kid, I loved animals for as long as I can remember. You're going to type something now, are you? Okay.
Got a message.
Yeah. Okay. If you're not getting it in, telepathically, I'll type it to you. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be really impressive, wouldn't it?
Maya the typing cat. I remember very clearly feeling more comfortable with elderly people,
right?
Than people my own age and even older. Because they were just so much more chilled and accepting of life. And of course they weren't like they didn't have the nature of animals necessarily, but they just were they were just more chilled out, more confident in themselves, so therefore didn't have so much to prove. Didn't have to sort of say things, they didn't put you down, to try and make themselves feel better, etc. So I remember that quite
mellowing with age, and also there's that generational gap as well, because I think we are evolving, and where we are now is a much more challenging place energetically. I'm not saying it was easy a few generations ago, but it was a very different experience of life for most people on the planet, wasn't it? So I think they held that energy, which was much more mellow, wasn't it? And much more, like you say, accepting and slower paced as well. So they would be more and do less, which is the opposite of where we are.
But still, sort of bearing in mind, they still had their restrictions. They were still, even talking to a 90-year-old woman when I was a kid, I couldn't have said, "Oh yeah, I've been talking to a horse." That still wouldn't have come across. They still have the ability to think you're crazy.
Yes, dear.
Yes, dear. Have a cookie, dear. Here's some needles you can learn to knit. Oh, okay, so we went way off track, but I love it. As you said, your mum is from the Scottish Highlands, and she met your English father when he was based in the Highlands. He was in the Fleet Air Arm of the Royal Navy. When your dad left the armed forces, they moved to a rural town in England called Wisbech in Cambridgeshire, you mentioned before, and you were born there in 1970, and you have a brother, Andy, who's 3 years older than you. So you also mentioned the summer holidays in the Highlands. It just sounds amazing. I'm so there with you, running and just being in nature, feeling so safe and connected. You also mentioned that you were very drawn to, and you remembered the Druid ways, like as a part of who you are. Do you remember anything to do with the Druids or anything like that when you were a kid up there? Was there any awareness?
Well, it wasn't a direct, "Oh, this is Druid." It was things that I would be doing naturally, that as I've then in later life learnt about the Druid ways, gone, "Oh my God, I used to do that." So for example, I always used to lie on my back, or I'd be sitting on the swing and I'd be reading the clouds. So I'd know that the pictures would form in the clouds as I was watching, and I'd get messages about what was important, and I would instinctively know it's the shape of an elephant and what the elephant's message was. Non-verbal, I wouldn't tell anyone about it, but it would just flow in, and it was again one of my happy places to be. I remember lunchtimes, run home from school, it was only up the road, have my lunch really quickly, and then sit on the swing outside and just be seeing what messages were coming in. And you know, that was just something that I did, and I don't think I never told anybody about it, but it was just something amazing. And I was reading a book a few years ago about the Druid ways, and it was saying about cloud divination, and I was like, I used to do that, and staring at the fire flames as well. I used to do that as well, and I'd see the animals and different beings show themselves in the flames, and again it would just be, oh yeah, you know, it wasn't like, what is that, you know, it was just very natural. And so I guess part of my reason for being here is that remembering, so remembering things that a lot of people don't remember, and how you deal with that in your life, and getting over that, as we've been saying, getting over that, do I say to somebody about that, or will they think I'm, you know, a bit mad, or and getting to that point where you think, well, if they do, never mind, you know, but they might not. We might have a great conversation because they go, oh, really, yeah, I remember doing that, or that's what I used to think, but I thought I was just crazy, you know. So I think that's part of, you know, an unaccepted form, and I think also linked into that past life memories of that being punishable. So you have these reactions where you think, I can't say that because I'll be burned at the stake, or, you know, it's not that obvious, but you have that shock reaction to it, and learning to come through that, and to realise that actually, when you stand authentically and you speak your truth, the people that are meant to get that in this lifetime will gravitate to you, and those that aren't just, you know, don't turn up, or they do and they quickly leave. And that's okay.
yeah And I don't know if it's difficult to know if it's just that my awareness has changed, or if things have actually changed. But I feel like things like that, they're happening much more quickly. Whether there's more protection around these authentic ways, or if, you know, it's like people are speeding up, everything's speeding up, and decisions are made much quicker. I guess, you know, just thinking about astrology, Uranus is in quite a strong position at the moment, and that is speed, so that could account for it, I guess. Sorry, just having, you know.
No. I was reading about that the other day, and I think you're right. I think whether we're conscious or not, I think we are all receiving, whatever you want to call it, energy upgrades that are facilitating us shifting consciousness, and their opportunities. So we still have to take them, and we still have to have the courage, or the willingness and the openness to follow a path that perhaps we wouldn't have done a few months ago, a few days ago even. And an opportunity comes up and you think, oh, well, why not just try it and see what happens. And I think that's sort of the story of my, like you say, the 10 years is from that point where I had the courage to actually go, let's follow that intuition and go with it, even if it is quite frightening. And I think the upgrades, whatever it is, the energy we're receiving is giving us, I don't know if they are shortcuts, but it feels like shortcuts to be able to get onto our path more quickly. And we'll never fully understand it, I'm sure, but it does feel like that.
And like you say, it's about making the choice. It shows you make a choice. Do you follow, or do you deny it? And if you deny it, it'll keep coming up.
In different ways, or to different extremes. In terms of healing, because I'm a healer as well, and again, that was something I did as a child. I knew I could heal without any training. I didn't know what it was. I just instinctively knew that I could be with an animal and offer healing, and they would receive it, and vice versa. But that we're in a position now where we can heal a lot quicker, and yet we have to still be open and willing to make that choice and take responsibility for it. Otherwise we'll block it, and if we keep blocking it, then we get sick. And that can be, again, I think that's to do with your own individual journey, but you certainly don't help yourself when you're blocking things, because the sickness will indicate the level of imbalance. And it's complex, but
no, it is very complex. But I think what I've discovered is the key to all of this is awareness, and just continuing to be aware, continuing to notice your thoughts, your emotions, your responses, your reactions, and the outside, like we were talking before about when an animal or a bird appears, is to notice it and to keep noticing nature's message. Or not even just noticing when nature shows up. You might not even notice them, you might not know the message yet. But just, it's like this awareness, it's like I don't know, it's like it clears and it opens, and it becomes easier to accept. And I mean, I it's like with Maya laying across my notes before, it's very clear to me there's something there. I don't exactly know what it is, but I'm aware of it, and it'll grow and it'll become clearer. And at some point, I'll probably have an aha moment where there are a few things come together in a synchronous moment, and oh yeah, there, I get it.
Or maybe not, because
and
sometimes you don't need the logical aha moment. There's an integration that goes on, and you're smoothing your way, because your unconscious is ultimately the driving force of your connection. And for me, it's about, you don't even need, although our natural tendency often is to understand it logically, it's almost just being curious and like say observing and noticing and saying, oh, wow, there's a woodpecker here, and they keep showing up. Or I've just noticed that if I slow down in the forest, which I did at the weekend, there's all these different fungi everywhere that I've never even seen before. And I was getting so excited, photographing them so I could look them up and see who they are and what they do and how they operate, and, and just being curious. And I think that's hugely important, because when you're curious, you're open. And when you're open, things will flow to you, but you still don't necessarily need to understand them consciously for them to be affecting and changing your own level of vibration and consciousness. And I think the more we can flow with that and hold it like a child, light, fun, curious, excited, what's going to happen next, the easier our life becomes. And it's that's often quite challenging, particularly when you're in a pandemic world with everything that's going on, but I think it's a real massive skill to just practice and get better at, because no doubt about it, the better the state you're in of doing that, the easier your connections will be made, and opportunities will turn up, and you'll feel that intuition and have the courage to follow it, because you think, well, it's nature, she's telling me to go this way, so I know it's okay. There's nothing to fear, because they don't give you don't get duff calls from nature. You only get that from the busy mind trying to control and fix and sort and decide and all of that. But, and that's where the animals are such brilliant role models, because they're always in that state. They're always in that receptive, curious, open state. They obviously will react to threats and things, which is survival, but other than that, they're in this wide open state, and I think that's what we need to get better and better at.
And that's why sort of hanging around animals is it really helps us. They rub off.
They're such teachers, they're master teachers, all of nature. Just go and sit with a tree for half an hour and just totally open up, and it's amazing what they'll share with you. But again, you don't have to have a sentence or an aha moment or anything. It's just the feeling. It's the feeling of being with them and how that emanates through you that makes all the difference. And I think because we've become so head centric as a species, we find it really hard, because you can't feel with a thought. You can only feel with feelings, can't you? And that's what we're told, keep your feelings, locked inside. In often situations, it's, don't show emotions or keep them hidden, and even to yourself. But actually, they're the key to you expanding and opening up and following those waves of possibility and new experiences, which is where we need to be going as a species. We need to remember that we're here to take care of the planet, and how we can do that, and what would bring us the most joy in doing that. And that's, to me, that's number one priority on the planet right now.
Totally. Yeah, we are caretakers and we are responsible.
Yeah. And it should be a joy. It should be an absolute joy. What could be better than taking care of planet Earth, Mother Earth, who keeps us alive and gives us life? It should be such a joyous thing. And I think wherever you can find those opportunities to do that, you'll find you feel good about it. And that's that feeling that we really need to be bringing in more and more, don't we?
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that there are there's so many shocks these days is it is just that, to remind people, or to to just to wake people up, to see, and I mean, I remember for some people the pandemic was an opportunity to do that. It sort of broke apart what was normal for so many people. And I mean, obviously it's been incredibly challenging for a lot of people, but it has been an opportunity to simplify and to slow down. I mean, and obviously not for everybody, because having to homeschool and do a full-time job for some people is very challenging, but I have noticed that there is that there are people who have taken the opportunity to just slow down, and I mean, I guess it hasn't really affected me, but having moved to where I am now, that opportunity just sort of came about, through a variety of synchronicities and awareness. And I find myself just sort of looking out the window, just watching the birds, the seagulls. I'm a bird of prey girl. I love birds of prey. And I've just been mesmerized by the seagulls here, just by their characters. And we had one who landed on the terrace, and he was talking. Well, I didn't realize this at the time. I heard him, and I thought, wow, there's something's going on out there. And I came into this room, and I looked, and I saw he was just standing there, but I'd given him a fright because I didn't know what to expect. And then when I came out, I saw Maya was actually on the terrace, and they were talking to each other. And it was certainly not,
And will you let Janine know this, please? Well, I'm trying my best.
She's responding. I'm trying. Oh. So and I think when people even just noticing things like that, I think, as you say, it affects people on an unconscious level first, probably for a lot of people. You notice how many people share these experiences with animals on they take videos on their phones of experiences that they're having with animals. And you know, are more people having those experiences, or are we just seeing more of it because of the ability to record it? I don't know, but
yeah, I hope so. It feels like more people are reconnecting to nature, and again, I think the pandemic opened that up a lot for a lot of people. I'm hoping that people are making the connection that without the animals and nature, we don't exist either, because we're dependent on each other, and the level of that dependency is absolute. You know, it's not optional. Oh well, never mind if we don't have bees anymore, or you know, we don't have earthworms anymore, or our soil won't grow crops anymore. You know, well, that's optional, isn't it? No, it's not. And water as well. So I'm hoping that more people are reconnecting that, and I think again, what, as you say, unconsciously, when people reconnect to animals, their hearts open, and even if they don't understand that, they become open to caring, and then in that caring they'll attract information that will say, well, did you know that wasps are actually really important in our ecosystem, and you shouldn't really hate them and try and kill them all the time, you know, and all those sorts of connections. So I think it is moving in that direction. I think mainstream media still doesn't support us seeing that as much as is actually happening, which is good. I'd rather it would be that way around than the other way around. It's reporting it and there's nobody actually learning anything or remembering. So I think it's about staying focused on what we're doing every day, and then trusting that others are coming along with it. But I think they are. It feels like they are, and it's very needed, and getting quite urgent, I think, in terms of what happens over the next, you know, I think pretty soon. I mean, we're already seeing global warming problems that humans don't like, the fires and the floods and all of that happening, and I just pray we speed it up, keep speeding it up, and all the solutions that we need are already there. Us humans are brilliant at coming up with solutions. We just need the leadership and the desire from those leaders to actually make that happen, don't we?
Yeah, it's and courage and being of service, putting nature first, or at least, you know, sort of equal with our own survival. I mean, we have to live, and we can't just put everything into you know, our you know, activism, because we need to sustain ourselves on many levels, but to make the choice, again, is making the choice to follow what we're being asked to do, or what comes into our awareness. And and you know, and I guess it's the old adage of, when we work on ourselves and we heal ourselves, we're healing everything else as well. And part of that healing is to remember that we are connected to everything else, and that we're all dependent on each other. So why would we hurt or harm anyone else? Because of course that harms us. And so it's that remembrance that ultimately heals and helps ourselves, as well as helping everybody else as well. So but yes, we'll get there. I think we will get there. When is the unanswerable question? Yeah, in our lifetimes, in 5 generations. So we don't know. We
don't know, and that's okay. We don't need to know.
No,
it's like you say, it's up to us to choose and react and make decisions in our lifetime right now, with the time that we've got, and do the best that we can, and that's all.
That's it. That's exactly all we can do. Okay, so to come back to your childhood, when you were 8 years old, your father decided to leave your family and moved to Los Angeles, where he remarried. He was an alcoholic and a workaholic, and was absent emotionally and inconsistent. in those 8 years, you learned some pretty unhelpful patterns from both of your parents, but acknowledging that if they were, of course, doing the best they could do with what they had and their experiences. And then as you matured, you replaced these patterns with healthier responses. So would you feel okay to share an example of one of these patterns and how it formed, and then how you healed the pattern?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one that I presume I added the bit in about I've learned healthier responses, and I'd add that sometimes because they still come back and you think, oh no, my dad used to do that, or my mum used to do that. I think that's again another human thing, isn't it, where you hopefully you can become aware enough that you spot it and then you can change quickly. But
and then it's the spiral, because it comes around, and it's that when I used to think I thought I'd healed something, and phew, I'm done with that now, I can rest, and then 2 years later it comes around again. No, I thought I'd dealt with this.
Exactly. And I think we sort of unravel layer by layer, don't we, and go a bit. But so I mean, one example that's sprang to mind was that my dad, bless him, he was prone to mood swings, so he would have good days and bad days, and he'd have these inconsistencies, which of course I've already shared that I really didn't like, but he was quite a force, and I was respectful of him, and he could shout quite loudly if he got angry, and so I remember an inconsistency being that one day he would be watching television and me and my brother would be there, and he would say to my brother, because he was always harder on my brother than he was on me, which again is family patterns, he'd say, do you know what that means, to my brother? And my brother would go, no. Well, why didn't you ask? And then my brother would go, what does it mean? And then he told him, and everything was all right. And then the next day he'd be watching the television, and my brother would go to ask a question and go, be quiet, I'm watching this. And I'd be like, oh, what's that all about? So this sort of inconsistency of do as I say and not as I do, which again I spent a good chunk of my working life from when I left school up until the point at which I broke away and did my own thing in corporate world, where these sorts of things are just totally normal. Like you just do whatever you're told and you don't question it, and if you do, well, you're going to get your head bitten off, or worse, and so so I think for me that was about being aware, because I know I'm a quadruple Scorpio.
I was just thinking then I was like, oh yeah, there's the Scorpio, isn't it?
So thankfully I've got a lovely husband, David, and he's very good for me in that, as I say, I will fall into things and then hopefully most of the time go, oh no, what have I just, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that, it just came out, I don't even know why I did it, and you'll go, yeah, it's all right. so sort of trying to think before you do something. But even if you do something and then you think, oh no, that's a horrible old pattern, then at least owning it as quickly as possible and saying, oh, I didn't mean to do that, I'm really sorry. And often that's to myself as well, because a lot of the patterns are inside, aren't they? And you'll have a go at yourself for something and think, oh no, I really didn't need to be nasty to myself about that, really, it was just a mistake. So I don't know if that's a very good example, but
no, I think it is. I think it is, absolutely.
But that inconsistency, it shows up in other ways, where if there's certain energies in people that I meet, I can, because that would trigger a bit of anxiety in me, and you go into rabbit in the headlights mode, where you either need to just stay very still and not do anything, or you try and escape as quickly as possible. And I can still get that trigger, even with the awareness, I can feel it, I know when it's going to come, and I'm a lot more aware of it, but it's then how quickly can I then step into that and think, just breathe and they're not the same, and there's nothing, you know, you're perfectly safe, and then walk through it. So I think awareness is the core part, as you said, isn't it, that you hope as you go through your life you can get better at preempting something as it's coming, either out of you or, you know, to you, and be able to step in and hopefully change that path before it escalates, like you say. But yeah. And then the other thing, which is classic, codependent dependent, is trying to control what other people do so they don't make mistakes. Which is hilarious. And really doesn't work on any level. No. So that's the one that I will still fall into quite regularly, but now I'm much quicker. Sometimes, maybe half the time, I can divert before I do it, but then the other times I'm sort of trying to realise it and just backtrack from that and go down a different road. So but yeah, it's you know, and I think we're born into our families for a reason. I don't think it's an accident. I think learning the lessons or not is part of our life choice again, isn't it? And realizing that we can change, but it's certainly not easy for us to change. We resist it, and some of the patterns can be so ingrained that it is a lifetime of, you know, learning to have a sense of humor with yourself and
laughing at yourself,
and finding other strategies that you can use that are more effective for you and for all the poor people around you.
But it tells me, you know, what an amazing person you are, you know, and how wise you are. The fact that a quadruple Scorpio recognizes that they need to learn to laugh at themselves, you know. I mean, that's amazing. That's the phoenix out of the ashes in itself.
Oh, bless you. Well, I hope so. And you know, and I think I've learned the hard way through a lot of years where I would have friendships or relationships and that compatibility wasn't there, and it would be really quite abrasive. And I think as a female as well, it's very hard because you're not expected to have that. You know, I'm, as you know, opinionated and forceful, and I want to help. My heart's good. I believe my heart's good. But sometimes it just comes out all wrong and upset people. So and again, I think with the animals, you know, your behavior and what you say to them, they don't ever hook in the way that humans will, but they will give you feedback on it. Especially, you know, if you're overstepping a boundary, they'll say no, you know, or there'll be, you know, a warning bite from a cat to say no, don't do that, you know, or stop using that energy. And so they're just brilliant teachers, but it doesn't tend, well, I can't imagine that it would ever end in a full-scale argument as it does human to human. But
no, right. It's funny that you mentioned cats. You know, they will bite, but you know, you don't get that from dogs usually. But cats,
I knew a dog. Who was the dog? I think it was you know, Midnight at what's it called? The place that you stay when you go to Adam's Calendar in South Africa with Linda.
I never went there, but I know.
There's two dogs there, and Midnight, he's a master, but he'll come and he doesn't bite, he nibbles you when something's going on, and he'll be like, and he won't hurt, but it'll carry on until you listen, and then he'll sit with you, and he's amazing. So he's saying your energy's not right, and I'm showing you. And I remember him saying to me once, I always get blamed for being naughty, but I'm not, I'm correctional. And she thought that was so funny.
Fantastic, very poignant.
But he's amazing, and yes, very. So they'll guide you, but again, it's just being open and aware. If you're aware enough to say, I don't know what it means, but it means something, and you know, give me some
understand.
Yeah, some signs that gives me a bit more, you know, different clues so that I can understand it a bit more. Then it becomes amazing. Whereas with humans, what tends to happen is we can get stuck in those cycles where we believe it's, oh, it's you, it's no, it's you, no, it's me, no, it's you, and we don't necessarily get that that gentle but firm clarification that animals give us. So.
Yeah. And this is the thing, you know, one of the things that I love about astrology, you know, is that it does give you some insight into what the patterns are that you have, or that you can choose to work through. You know, patterns from your mom, patterns from your dad, and so it can help you get back on track quicker than just sort of, you know, bumbling around trying to figure things out on your own. It is like signposts and traffic lights, and
well, it's also helpful to raise conscious awareness, isn't it? Because the start of change is the conscious awareness, taking it from you just do it without even knowing you're doing it, to doing it and then going, oh yeah, I've just done that again, haven't I? And then beating yourself up to then going into the next level awareness is, well, you know, I've just done it again. Okay, so what are my choices, and who do I need to apologize to, and you know, and what can I do next to then that gradually becoming hopefully positive new changes that then sort of get a grip, and then they become the norm. But it is, I mean, I think animals learn far quicker than humans as well. You know, when you see animals learning, they're absolutely amazing, because again, they're pure vessels, aren't they? So they don't bring all of the stuff that we do, you know. Oh, I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing, it's awful, oh, I'm not good enough, all of this stuff that we ladle onto ourselves. And the animals don't, they just go, oh, that didn't work, oh, that didn't work, oh, that works, let's do that.
We just keep doing that. Yes.
Exactly. So again, I don't think that's an accident. I think that's intentional for us. But it is, I suppose it is about your willingness to open up to it and to be brave enough to keep stepping into those scary places that are calling for change, and to find a way of feeling safe enough to take those changes. And again, I don't think you can do that in yourself. I think you need to rely and ask for help from source. And, you know, and trust that, you know, for me, nature is a benevolent force. It can be quite brutal in some ways in terms of the cycles of life and the way that life is, but there are fundamental laws that are benevolent and are solid, and you can rely on them 100%. And to me, that's a saving grace, especially in today's world, is that, you know, I can always just pull my coat on and go outside, and there she is, you know, in all her magnificence, just waiting to go, just adjust that bit, just let go of that and breathe a bit more deeply, and there you are, you're a bit better.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
just to sort of get out of the four walls, whatever four walls you're surrounded by, just to get out. It makes such a difference.
It does.
So, you know, talking about these patterns was, I mean, I'm guessing, so from childhood you know, you had these first experiences where you recognized intuitively that that the adults were being you know, were lying, were not responding truthfully to the way that they were feeling. Did you go through a phase of unconsciousness where you got lost in that as well, or do you think you will always have some level of awareness?
I always could feel the incongruency, And as I got older, so sort of into my teens and then into early working life through university and into working life, I realised that if I wanted to be rewarded for what I was doing, I would also need to follow those incongruencies, which I was very good at, because I'd learned how to be very adaptive when you've got a codependent, dependent volatility going on. So I learned how to be the smiling face, even when I really wanted to run away and cry. And that worked really well for me. So I did really well in business environment, but it always felt awful. So I had this parallel existence going on where I was flying high and getting promoted and getting all the glamorous jobs, and everybody was saying how amazing I was, and I was thinking, I'm not even doing anything, you know, I'm just turning up and playing the game, because it was always a game. But underneath that, I would go home at night and just think, there must be more to life than this, and it's just not. I'm playing this game and I'm getting, you know, gradually I went up in terms of salary and things, so then all the stuff that you can do and buy was nice, but it still didn't make me feel fulfilled. It was like an empty victory, and that knowing that I was playing this game and, you know, working with people. Some people were amazing, really nice people, some were not, but there was always this game going on. It always felt just inauthentic, and I think I sort of numbed myself to it for a number of years, because I didn't think there was a choice, but then when I started to realise that there was a choice, it then started to become unbearable, because I knew there was a choice and I knew I had to do something about it. So yeah, it was fascinating, because it was so easy for me to progress in it, but it felt the more I progressed, the worse I felt, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that. So just to continue, your mum did an amazing job of raising you and your brother by herself. Although she was a strong and courageous yet quiet influence, she never quite recovered from the marriage breakdown. You continued to visit the Highlands each summer, and you had some very fond memories of the landscape, seascape, and of course the animals you encountered there. Your parents were also nature-loving folk and so very kind and caring, therefore easy humans to be with. And I mean, you've talked a little bit about that experience there, and I can just imagine. I mean, my cousins had horses. They lived about 2 hours away from where I grew up, and you know, I just couldn't wait to go up there and be up there with them in the country and with the horses. And you know, do you remember how you felt about thinking about that 2 weeks each year?
Oh, just ridiculously excited. And we would drive up, when my dad was still with us, we would drive up, and we'd get sort of like an hour into the 12-hour journey, and I'd be like, are we there? Are we there? I was so ridiculously excited. I must have driven them both to despair, and my brother, I would think. I just loved it. And I was so sad when we used to have to come home as well. You know, I'd always be sobbing, you know, partly, you know, saying goodbye to my grandparents, because they were such lovely people as well, and the whole land up there, and the Scottish people, it's always felt like a very warm home for me, and you know, just the land, the nature, the animals, just magical. So, and we used to, my gramps would grow loads of his own vegetables, and I remember coming home with a big bunch of carrots, and I'd be munching on them in the back seat, and you know, just really, really fabulous. I wished we could have spent more time up there, but it was obviously too far for us to go more than. Okay, I think occasionally we went twice a year, but it was mainly just once a year. But it was so amazing, and
sounds magical.
Just absorbing all of that, but it's stayed so much in my heart, and I'm being really called to go back there at the moment, so I'm not sure when we'll be able to, but
I was just thinking, have you talked to David about moving up to the Highlands?
Oh, I have, but I mean, he also, it rains so much up there though. So not quite sure we're there on that one, but
well, just you can tell him. And this is a saying in Bergen here in Norway: there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing.
Exactly, that's so true.
Yeah. Oh. So the huge trauma of your father's sudden and permanent absence caused you to shut down your emotions for a long time. Part of your healing journey has been to thaw them out so that you can feel them again. And that's where the courage comes in, having the courage to feel the emotions and work through them in healthy ways. When you were a child, you would turn to nature and the animals to help you feel better, and their love and capacity to heal really helped you. So you think your need to be in nature was really solidified by experiencing that in your early life. You could share your emotions with the animals, but didn't share them with humans until you worked through them in your own personal healing work. The breakdown of trust caused you to believe that you must not open up to people, or you would get hurt again. And so many of us have been saved by nature and animals. I mean, in so many different ways. How did you share your emotions with the animals? When you say you could share your emotions with the animals, what was that like?
I mean, again, it was very natural. I didn't think, I'm going to go and see the horses and, shed some of my, fears or anxiety. It was a very kinesthetic need to get out. So I would go and visit the local ponies and just be with them. And just because I felt so much love for them, I think that was a way of me being able to keep my heart open, even though I didn't with humans. It was more sort of shut down. But because I was able to give them love, of course, when you give it, you receive it. So so it was just, I would go feeling upset or out of sorts or frustrated or angry, and I'd spend some time with them, and then I'd just feel better, and they would enjoy me being there, and I would enjoy being with them, and it just was that sort of that natural into what's the word I'm looking for? Just an exchange of energy. And I think being on the land as well, just being on the grass, being on the soil was a transmuter and an energy clearer. I wasn't thinking that as a 9-year-old or whatever. I was just purely in the moment, having a lovely time with the ponies and talking to them. But I don't consciously. I didn't, again, it was innate. I didn't think, I need to go to the horses because I don't feel great. It just happened, I would just instinctively know, go and sit in the field for an hour, or just walk. Again, walking's always been there as part of me, even though when I was a kid I didn't acknowledge or realise that. I just made the connection that I did those 3 treks as well, and they're all walking treks that I did for charity years ago, because walking is such an important thing, I think, for my sense of connecting to the land as well. But I think it was just a knowing exchange that wasn't at a conscious level, and then I'd go home and feel a lot better, and carry on, with the normal. I think once my dad left, there was such a high elevation of anxiety, which was different from when he was there. When he was there, it was more about, is he going to be in a good mood or a bad mood when he comes home, or what's going to happen there and how's he going to behave. And when he left, it was much more about survival. It was about, are we going to be okay? Is mum going to be okay? And she was much more internalized with her feelings around us, because I think I think even now in today's world, parents think, it's better to try and put on a brave face for the children, but actually the children read and see straight through it. So they know that there's an incongruency there, and that probably makes you worry even more, doesn't it? Why are they not saying anything? Why are they, why are they so sad and down, and yet they're pretending everything's all right? There must be something really bad happening. So I think that's where a lot of the trauma came through, and then my coping strategy was a lot of sort of shut down on the human front, and even feeling it myself, but unconsciously when I went into nature they were helping me to process it, without me realizing that's what was going on, because I wouldn't have understood it at that point, I don't think.
No, right, but looking back you can see that it was happening.
And I suppose the knowing part of us that's there all through our life knew for me to just go and be with the animals, because that was literally a natural thing to do, wasn't it? So but it wasn't conscious, it was just, this is what I do.
It's like as a kid, it's like the desires of you just do what you desire unless someone tells you can't, and so you just follow that, but that comes from a more authentic place than it does when you're an adult, perhaps. Different level of desire.
I think so. It's an interesting one. A lot, again, complicated. Trauma's very complicated.
Yes, totally. And multi-layered as well, because then you build on that, because you respond to something and then you get a new trauma, and that's why it takes so long to peel back the layers of the onion, and why it comes around again, because there's so many different aspects of the same energy as we've it's like you have the core wound and then you build on that, and so we have to come back to the core wound.
Well, and it's like, I can't remember what they call it, but and I think it's either Chinese or Japanese, they value the pottery that's broken and they mend it with gold, the gold seams, and they say it's not about trying to pretend that the trauma of it breaking never happened, but it's actually about celebrating the repair work. And because, again, if you think about why we come here as humans, our traumas help us move in the directions that our lives take. And yes, the idea is that we free ourselves as much from the negative limitations of them, but they'll never go all together, because that's part of our experience here in this lifetime, as having experienced that, and it'll never disappear, but really you wouldn't want it to, because you wouldn't be the same person if it
and it's about not being driven by it anymore.
Exactly. And they don't, with those vases, they say each one's unique, and it's it drives out of you something that is your uniqueness, and without that you'd just be the same as everybody else. So
and I was just thinking of Andrew Harvey, and it's something that I've struggled with. He talks about where is your heartbreak, and that is your your purpose.
Exactly.
And
definitely where I've been for that, this last, seems like a lot longer than 10 years as well.
It does, doesn't it?
It was an amazing door opening that wasn't free and easy and clear at all, but it was all about my heart breaks whenever I see animals being dishonored, being disrespected, being badly treated, and and how precious they are, and why can't humans see this? That's like
and the annoying thing is, it's only because people don't realize. If they realized, if they saw the truth, it would be 99.9999% of people would tread so much more gently on the earth and be lighter. But and I think, you know, that's one of the driving forces for me, because I question everything. I don't just question you, I question me and the thoughts, and you know, and you know, why am I doing this? What, you know, and there's so many different levels that I'm realizing, and one of those is, you know, to show people that you know, it's not about having a perfect childhood, you know, like this you know, growing up in a family who have, you know, guided you to understand animals. You know, we've had to figure this stuff out for ourselves, you know, even when it is natural as a kid, you still have to actually understand it as an adult. And that's, you know, that's one of the things, because my heartbreak is about animals, and you know, obviously it's sort of different version of your heartbreak with animals, you know.
Exactly. And I love that you know, have courage to believe that you can do something about that. You can help to rebalance something, and that's a unique thing that only you can do, nobody else can. You know, and I think in today's world there's so much a sense of, well, what can I do, and it's too big, and it's too difficult, and I'm powerless, and I'm only this, and you know, I speak and who listens, and all of that stuff can make you feel as if it's hopeless, and you know,
put it on hold for years and years and years, like I did, and then it's
when I've done this, then I'll do that, or you know, and I think that's something that isn't true. You know, it isn't true. And each of us can do something, but it will be different for everybody.
Yes,
and, you know, I had an amazing encounter with a kudu, big male kudu in South Africa.
We're just to say that is one of the antelope family.
Oh, it's one of the big antelopes, with the big spiral horns. Absolutely amazing, with stunning paint on, and he's awesome. And he was stood right in front of where we were, and I was saying to him, "It's okay." He was sort of defending because he had his family. And I said, "It's okay, we're here to help." And he said to me, "Well, you've got plenty to do, haven't you?" and I said to him, sort of a little bit shocked at that, but not really, because he was like in his energy. And I said, "Well, you know, where do we start?" And he said, "Right where your hooves are." And I thought, "Oh, thanks." And then I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? It's about exactly where you are, doing what you're currently doing, and you look around and you think, what can I do? You know, how can I help? And that just blew me sideways. I don't think I said anything for the rest of the morning, because I was just like, wow. It was so powerful. And I think it's that no matter where you are and what your circumstances are and what's going on, to do something, no matter what it is, no matter if you tell yourself it's something really small and insignificant. You know, I'll give you a very simple example. Yesterday afternoon, I popped into the downstairs toilet, and there's a little wasp in the toilet. Don't know how he got in there. He was swimming. So I just instinctively, as you would, grabbed a little bit of cardboard. Up you come, love. Popped him outside so he could dry out, and stayed with him to make sure he was all right. And then he flew off. And, you know, anybody can do that. You know, it's not, you don't need to spend an hour or spend any money. It's just that awareness and thinking, I can actually act here. And it feels really good. You know, it felt nice to think, oh, well, thank goodness that I came in just at that moment. And that he was okay, you know, and he can go off and do his important job in the world. And so those sorts of things, you might think, well, is that really influencing change? Well, yeah, of course it is.
Because that's the choice is like a butterfly effect, don't you think?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there's a vibration that echoes out into our consciousness. So the question is, what are we choosing to put out into that consciousness? And as we make those decisions, it feels fulfilling, because if you're so passionate about wanting to help, which I think most people are,
I do too,
that any step that you take doesn't, you know, it doesn't require to be discounted. It's important, and it's a good thing to do. So I think, again, like you, I think one of my big passions is just encouraging people to just, you know, realize that we can all do something, and no matter what, whether we think it's big, small, doesn't matter, does matter, but we can do it, and it does feel better when we do something. I think the hopelessness is what will cause the biggest problems on the planet now, if humans, enough humans, believe they can't do anything.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I think about that, it's about the expectations. What, you know, we live in this age where, you know, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later in regards to the Facebook followers, that, you know, we have to have 1,000 million whatever followers, and, you know, that's when we've made it. And, you know, and so, you know, we get this idea that, you know, I want to make a difference, but what can I do? And I think it's because we have these expectations that we have to do something big, not something, like you said, just something as simple as, you know, saving the wasp from the water.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, we take that expectations, and then we allow ourselves to have this beautiful moment, as you said, which means so much because it's so pure and authentic, and it's just you and the wasp. And that, to me, when I have experiences like that, that means more to me than, I mean, not that I've, you know, don't have a lot of followers or anything, but, you know, that the level I would feel that on, you know, having 100,000 followers compared to that moment with the wasp, it's incomparable. You know, that moment with the wasp is just is pure. It's what actually what life is all about. It's the thing that has meaning.
Exactly. You know, I go out for 2 walks every day, and I delight in every possible opportunity to help where I can. You know, if I see a slug crossing the road and it's all hard, and I look at which direction he's going or she's going, and I say, I'm just going to help you over to the other side, pick them up and pop them down. And I think, well, I hope that that's what they want me to do.
Now they've got to turn around and go, oh,
but, you know, I always try and see what direction they're going, but you just think, well, A, they might get run over by a car, and B, it must be really hard work going over really hard gravelly surface when you're meant to be on smooth grass and wet substances. So, but, you know, that again, it's a line, isn't it, where, as I say, you question, was that the right thing to do? But I think when there's a good intention behind it, 9 times out of 10 it will be a good thing. Or, you know, you find animals that are getting ready to pass over, and you can just be with them and you know, just give them a little bit of healing and just, you know, send them love and thank them for being such amazing beings, and that, you know, asking for their passing over to be beautiful and easy, and for them to just go towards that, and
peacefully.
You know, and that's, you know, it's such a privilege to be a part of that. And it doesn't, again, it's no money, it's you know, a very small amount of time when I would be out walking anyway, and yet it's such an honor for me to have found them. And I've found lots and lots of animals over the years that are getting ready to pass over, and I just think, again, that's part of obviously what I'm attracting, so that I can help animals that are passing, and they're, you know, they've been injured, and to help to soothe that trauma for them as they pass over. I don't think there could be anything more important than that, really. So there's so many things that you can do, you know, just whatever it is, but as long as it's coming from your heart and you're offering it in a loving, kind way, I don't think you can go wrong. But doing that, as opposed to thinking, well, I can't do anything because I haven't got you know, I'm not a celebrity and I don't have lots of money. It is all important, isn't it? I think just doing something, as much for your own sake, you know, your own sake and well-being, as for all the other beings as well.
And I think, getting out of your head and dropping into your heart, you know, just learning to slow down, you know, focus on your breathing, you know, just to and it, you know, none of these things happen overnight.
Yeah.
You need to keep coming back to them, and it is that, isn't it? It's, you know, I used to have this idea that, you know, oh, once I learn to meditate, I'll never have to force myself to meditate again, or, you know, you know, no, actually, you know, discipline is there for a reason. Actually, discipline is a part of a spiritual life. People would think, no, I just flow. No, you do need to keep coming back, and these things can become natural, you know, after years of practice. But because there's effort involved, it does not mean that it's wrong. Or that it's not natural. You know,
exactly.
It's kind of working through the patterns and what we're used to doing again and again and again, every day, every moment we make, you know, we have a choice to make. It's keep making that decision. So one day you might save the wasp, the next day you might not. So the day after that, you remember, you save the wasp again, like you keep coming back, and we beat ourselves up. Like you said, we have to have compassion for ourselves and just know that we're always doing the best we can do. And
I think so. And we probably do far more than we give ourselves credit for as well. You know, over the years working with people with their animals, the number of people that would be mercilessly beating themselves up for, and I used to do it myself, my animals, you know, oh, why didn't I do that? What if I, you know, maybe there's something I missed, you know, and the animals don't want us to do that. And because it doesn't make them feel any better, or it doesn't help them, and they don't want us to feel bad either. But it's things that we've learned to do, and they really are counterproductive for everybody, because you feel awful and everybody else around feels that as well. So but when we slip up, which we do often, or we resist, which we do often. Just, you know, a gentle but firm no, we are going to meditate this morning, and as soon as we do meditate, we feel better, don't we?
Exactly.
You know, and I think that's, you know, the way it is. And it's like you say, it doesn't end. I don't think we ever get there. We just keep.
No, we just, I was going to say it gets easier, but I think it's, I don't know, it's like it is more natural. There's less sort of effort. It is more natural.
I hope as we get older, we get wiser, you know, like you were saying about talking to the older folk, because I think you do mellow. Hopefully you mellow. I think you either go to mellowness, or you go the other way and you become much more rigid and fixed. And I always feel real pain when I see elderly folk that are in that rigid, fixed resistance, because it must be so awful. And I just think really, you know, it's worth putting the work in as you go through your life to become more aware, so that you can let go of a lot more, because otherwise I think it just gets worse the older you get. If you keep resisting it, it gets more and more powerful, that resistance. And
I guess they could become more and more unconscious, so it's almost like it's like they're on automatic, whereas you know, I feel like I'm seeing my thoughts, and you know, I see my patterns come up. I see it, you know, it's like all the time I see it, and sometimes I can get, I wouldn't say lost in it, but I become aware that I am going down a path I don't usually want to go down, and you know, so then I have an awareness about the fact that I'm letting myself go down that.
Exactly. And sometimes you still go down there, and that's okay as well. You think, next time I'm going to go down the other route. And then you get the opportunity to do it again and again. Exactly. And it's the same. So in terms of helping, you know, the small things count, and even if you miss an opportunity, there'll be another one along pretty soon. So, you know, I think the worst thing is thinking, well, I can't do anything because I haven't got this and I haven't got that and I haven't got time and blah, 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 blah. And you end up doing nothing, because all that means is that you beat yourself up for not doing anything, and you feel hopeless and helpless, and you don't actually contribute the amazing things that you could be if you did, you know, just follow that. So so
yeah, yes. Okay. Maya's just like, so some of your earliest memories, as you shared before, was reading clouds and hearing the animals, trees and plants talk to you. You had intuitive hits about many different things and quite often would know when things were going to happen. So intuitive memory was pretty well preserved in spite of this early trauma, which you shared before. So was it a knowing when did you hear voices in your head, or was it just a knowing? Hello. She's going to come and guide us. I'm lifting this up now before she lays on top of it.
She's the mistress of intuitive power at this point. I think it was kinesthetic, so it was in my body. I knew stuff. I'll give you an example. I was sat at university doing an evening class. My car, a little Mini that was ancient, my first car, was parked 5, 6, 7 streets away, and I was falling asleep in an applied statistics class at 8.
I can't imagine why.
Oh, God. And then suddenly I was bolt awake, and I heard actually it was an audio reference. I heard somebody hit my car, and I knew it was my car that had been hit. And so I did I can't just run out because I'm in the middle of the class, so I waited for the end of the class, and I left and I ran, sort of jogged to my car, and sure enough somebody had hit the front of my car. So that's one example of that knowledge that was there. And how old was I then? About 19, I suppose. So that stayed with me. And my mum's also, you see, I think my mum's lineage, very intuitive. My mum's also got that knowing, and I would know when things were happening with my mum, I would know stuff was going on, and I'd ring her up and say, oh, you've got that letter today, haven't you? And she'd go, oh yes, I did, yeah. And so to me it was cool. I remember thinking, this is really cool that I can do this, because other people clearly aren't all able to do that. But it's very natural, and that was definitely the same with the animals. So I knew who they were on an energetic level, and I knew that we could communicate with each other. But I also very quickly learned that people around me would say, that's not okay, so you mustn't do that. So I just kept it to myself. So I was quite good at keeping a lot of stuff to myself, because I can't be bothered with all the hassle of what I shouldn't be doing, you know. So so I think it never felt like, I never worried like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I never had that. It always felt, oh no, this is really cool, you know, a bit like a superpower.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it does. It does. It can feel like that, especially when you haven't had training to do it, and it just comes naturally, and you don't have so much awareness about where it comes from, what it is.
Yeah, it was just normal. It was normal, and yet not normal for most other people. But that didn't freak me out. It didn't make me feel, I know I hear people say to me that they felt like there's something wrong with me, or, you know, because of course some people will say, oh, you're a devil worshipper, you know, you've got voices, you know, and you said, oh, is there voices in your head? You know, that's often nothing.
You have to be careful who you say that to.
Well, exactly, because they have, again, beliefs that say that's not, you know, if you're not believing a certain set of beliefs in a certain way, then it's obviously something bad. But I never had that sense. I knew it was a benevolent force that was coming in to protect and support me. I knew it was about that. But I didn't really give it much thought at that age. It was just the way it was. It was only as I got older and learned more about Indigenous wisdom and more about Druid laws and beliefs, they made sense to me. So it was like, that's where that comes from. So it was those building blocks. She's very much enjoying this, isn't she?
She
says
is.
it's good. It's very nice.
Purring in the highest.
Oh, lovely vibration.
Okay, so well, thank you for sharing all of that.
Pleasure.
So there's just the last comments that you wrote. Your childhood encouraged you to be very independent, and it also taught you to deepen your connection with animals and nature, and to do all you can to protect and honor them. You see and feel very clearly just how important they are to all life, which we've talked about, and just how dreadful life would be on Earth without them. I mean, and not just dreadful, but like, you know, you wouldn't survive.
Unbearable, I would say, what on earth would you be doing here without nature and the animals on the planet? I mean, it's not a good picture at all, is it?
No, it's like living on Mars, you know.
Yeah.
So before the animal work that I read out before, the 10 years, you worked as a leadership facilitator, initially for a large bank, Barclays. Then you became a freelancer in 2004 and worked with organizations all over the world, helping leaders to learn more about themselves, how to effectively lead and empower their people. You trained to master practitioner and trainer of NLP at Barclays, just as you stepped into the freelance consultancy. So, it sounds to me, as we've been talking about this, your childhood and this work and what you're doing now, I can understand how, it seems like that you've always had this drive to make people a better version of themselves or become the best version of themselves. I
think it's out of selfish fascination in myself. How does this happen? We're in this human body and it's all a bit weird, and then there's all these beliefs going on, and what's that all about? Why are some people like this and some people like that? So I was always, it's a contradiction, because I didn't like being around the BS that humans do often, but I was fascinated by it at the same time. So I was fascinated with how, and I think it was about how can some people, you'd see people that you admire, how do they do that? And how come other people never seem to be able to reach what they ultimately want to do or achieve what they say they want to achieve? And that was a driver for me. I think maybe because I was, again, you're conditioned, aren't you? You're from a certain class, a certain part of society, and you're expected to do X, Y, and Z, and that's your know your place sort of thing. And if you're here, you're expected to go off and do upper echelons, and if you're down here, well, good luck, and don't expect much,
pat
you on the head and say, well, you go and do something in manufacturing or whatever. Nothing wrong with those jobs, but for me, I was like, I always knew that I wanted to be able to do my own thing. And yet when I went into the corporate world, it became very quickly seen by myself that you had to play the game and you had to do what they told you to, and then you could feel the straitjacket getting tighter and tighter on you as you progressed. I think that fascination was about freedom, and it was about, well, if we can change, then I need to learn how to change. And if I can learn how to change, then I can create whatever I want. And I think that was what was going on. But in order to do that, and it was totally accidental, in a synchronistic, non-coincidental way, that I left school, had a few jobs, and then ended up being, developing as a trainer and facilitator. So one of my biggest parts of my job was to learn about all these psychological things and behavioural things. And I did so much training and development so that I could then obviously transfer that to others. But in doing that, I was obviously absorbing it all applying as much of it as I could to myself as well. So I think that fascination was always linked to freedom, and it took a while for me to then connect that freedom to, and I can actually do what I want in the world to help the animals and nature. So that came later, because it took me ages to realize that the two were possible. You know, it was either I have to go down this route and have success, whatever that is, or I go down that route and it's really difficult and challenging. And I'm not saying it isn't, because it is quite challenging, but it's possible, you know. So it was a fascinating that route was the one that opened up for me. And again, I don't think that's an accident, you know.
No, it doesn't sound like it at all.
No.
So just to come back to a few of the things that you've done over the last 10 years, you know, you talk about you know, having 125,000 followers on Facebook on the Voice of the Animals. So what was that like? How did that feel, and why did you stop it?
Well, I started Voice of the Animals, which was just a page on Facebook, but it was also the name of my organisation, as you mentioned, when I was teaching animal communication and doing a one-to-one practice. I started it with a very clear intention of, this is about attracting people that want to learn how to communicate with animals, or want to have a communicator come and help them understand their animals. And that was fine, and it grew normally, I guess, whatever normal is. I would post on there and tell people, and I'd be advertising things. And then I can't quite remember at what point it started to change. Memory is not giving me that information, but at some point it started to change, and my clarity about what I wanted it to be about became blurred. And at that point I started to attract different people to the page. I was posting more about what needs to change, what injustices there are for animals. I don't think I was ever an angry activist, but I was raising the facts. I was angry about it, but I tried to communicate it in a way that said, look, you know,
balanced,
to change, to make a positive change, here are some things we can do. We can sign this petition, we can talk to other people. And I think it started to attract angry activists. Not all of them, because I didn't know most of them. 125,000 of them, I had no idea. But there were comments coming up that were making me go, oh, don't like that. That's not very nice. Delete that. Put up a notice saying, please only share, you know, positive things that people can do, and don't get, you know, violent towards other people and all that sort of stuff. So I was noticing that. And then I went to see Linda Tucker at White Lion Territories, and I came back from that, and at that point I had 10,000 followers, which was quite big. Was it 10,000? Yeah, I'm sure it was 10,000. And then in the next, I think it was about 6 months, it just escalated to 120,000, and I have no idea how that happened. I have no clue. I wasn't pumping loads of money into advertising. I still wasn't really clear what the heck I was doing with the page. And at the time I thought, well, this is great, because I want to help Linda and the White Lion, so I can use this platform to help that, to be a voice for them, as well as for other animals as well. And so I saw it as a positive and thought, well, this is good, because with numbers comes success and influence. But the thing was, I was posting things and I would get a response, but I'd also get an awful lot of people posting onto the page with this horrible energy that was much more about violently hating other people, and really just using it as an opportunity to expel that anger and that hatred in a way that I didn't like. And so, to cut a long story short, it took me a while, but in the end I thought, you know what, I don't really want this energy around what I'm doing, because there's just too many unknown vibrations coming together in this place. It's not, as far as I could tell, it wasn't bringing in people going to the White Lion Trust and donating or going to visit. I don't know for sure, but it didn't feel like it was. And so I thought, no, I'm going to get rid of it, because I just want to start with a clean slate of people that I know are like-minded and are bringing love and compassion, passion for what's happening, and not avoiding it, pretending it's not happening, but doing it in a way that says, look, you know, we can do something here as individuals, and we can act in ways to seek to influence in a positive way that's not about, you know, inflicting the pain and suffering on the people that are, you know, instigating it in the animals, which is to me just insane. So I pressed the button and let go of it all, which some people were like, what are you doing that for? You know, why didn't you keep it? But I thought it was very clear that it had lost its direction, because I had fed it with a direction, and other things, whatever happened. I don't know how that happened, but it just didn't feel right. So it was a good lesson in letting it go and realizing that actually nothing really changed as a result of getting rid of it, apart from I had a new slate to start attracting the people that I wanted to be gathering together in a collective space. So yeah, that was quite fascinating.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience to go through that, you know, that sort of seeming success, and then realizing it wasn't actually what you know what people think success actually is. It didn't feel so good.
And I still don't fully understand it now, but it was the right thing to do. So.
No, I can feel that as well. We're kind of running out of time, so I mean, we you know, we could talk for at least another hour easily, but I really would love for you to show, you know, just to talk a little bit about what you're doing now. And I love what your email says at the end: Jules Chabeaux, wildlife artist, honoring animal wisdom through intuitive art. I love that. So can you just share a little bit about that? And you've got a couple of pictures to show us.
Yeah, I'll show you a little bit of what I've been up to. So I was, where was I? End of 2018, and my health wasn't very good, and I burnt myself out, and I needed to just take some time out to heal. And I've always loved art, but having been in that place of work, doing all the various things that I've done, I hadn't really done a great deal of it since I was about 16, 18. But it was always animals. It was always animals, and mainly wildlife. And so as I was healing during this sort of 18-month period, my art started tapping me on the shoulder, and the animals were saying, you know, come on, get your paints and your pencils out, and let's do some art. And as I started to do it during this period of healing, it just clicked, and I just thought, oh my goodness, you know, this is what I need to be doing next. And it just, again, it was very natural and very, oh, of course, yeah, it's just like that made sense that this is what I would be doing. And the beauty of it was, from when I was 16, although I still had that belief about connecting with animals, it wasn't nearly as developed in me at that age. And particularly at 16, I was very much about moaning about the fact that my art teacher was saying I couldn't get an A because I wouldn't do abstracts and landscapes and you know, copying other artists. I just wanted to do my animals, and they downgraded me for that. So I was very much in a angst teenager space of being annoyed about it, and of course, so now I've been, you know, spending years developing and teaching around animal communication, and it just felt so natural that, of course, the animals can connect with me. In fact, they tap me on the shoulder, a bit like my book. They show up in different ways and say, excuse me, it's my turn to be seen and heard. And I, you know, resist at my peril and go with them and say, yeah, okay, let's do this. And I work with them. So if I have reference photographs, which I do most of the time, I'll have several reference photographs. I can sit with them and connect in and start to listen to what they want, how they want to be represented, what their energy is, and just tie in again kinesthetically with that. And then as I'm working, a bit like with the book, you know, the work comes through me, so I get into a state where I'm really relaxed and I'm just working with whatever medium I'm using, and the animals are there with me and they are guiding me. You know, it's still my hand doing the art, and I still get my head coming in the way going, oh, that's not very good, is it? And things like that are always very helpful. But you know, when I'm in that flow, that intuitive connection is amazing. So it was such a valuable healing for me to do that again, but also to realize, of course, you know, I can share the animals' messages through that visual form. There doesn't need to be any explanation or human words. It's purely between the viewer of the piece and the animal coming through, that allows that transmission to take place, even if they've never met that particular type of animal in their life before. And that can open up a communication, a feeling, a rebalancing for that purpose, for that person, and whatever purpose they need it for. And my God, it's such good fun as well. So I'm just loving that. I'm loving the whole thing. It's hard to you know, be self-employed as an artist is not an easy option at all. But I'm enjoying the challenge, and I'm enjoying the fact that my art is at the center of it, and what I'm talking about, my messages come from the animals, they come from what I'm experiencing as I'm creating them, and finding people through social media that get that and are going, wow, you know, your art brings. I had a lady yesterday saying to me, she said, what your art does goes beyond any photographic detail and image, because it's bringing forward the spirit. I wrote it when she was saying it because I thought I'll forget this and delete it if I don't. Brings forward the spirit and message and life energy of the animal.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, thank you, Helen.
Yeah.
So that's what, again, sometimes you do things and you don't realize what that is. So to hear someone who's seen my work say that was just really good, to hear that. So for me, it's about letting the animal connect with the person through the visual representation, which of course holds the energy as well. And yeah, so that animal communication connection through the art is where I am, and I'm loving it. So it feels like exactly what I'm meant to be doing.
It suits you so much. It really,
it just feels really,
so you.
Really nurturing for me. And again, I know that it's a human animal connection rather than a human connection, trying to create an understanding of the animal here. It's much more direct, which I really love as well.
That's beautiful.
So yeah,
very powerful.
I'm having a lovely time, even though I'm still doing the why can't I be better now?
Yeah, I think we just learn to live with the voice, you know, and it stops, you know, affecting us, but yeah, it doesn't go away.
It doesn't, especially when I'm, you know, if I've got a lion up at the moment that I've started yesterday, and I've done one and said no, it's not good enough, because it's not honoring them enough. So I'm going to do another one. And I said to David this morning, it's not right. And he said, yeah, but you're learning, aren't you? And every time I do something, the animals and you know, the whole learning thing is I learn a bit more, and that should be enjoyed, shouldn't it? It should be like, great, I've learned something new, and I've learned that my eye saying that I need to put the muzzle there, but actually it needs to be a bit further over, and that's good. I've learned that now. So so yeah, so it's a really powerful learning experience, but it's also very peaceful and very nurturing, because of course the animals are communicating throughout it as well. So yeah.
And you have a on your website, you have the pictures of the different animals that you have painted.
Yes, I have. Interestingly, I've just discovered at the moment, hopefully it'll be all solved by the time everybody's listening to this, but my gallery has a glitch in it, which is where all my art is. So it's not working today, but it will be fixed. I'm allowing that to happen. So I thought that was quite funny that suddenly people aren't able to look at my art. Which is really bizarre, but there you are. But it will be resolved. So yes, there's a gallery when it's working that will allow you to just flick through. I've got three collections so far. There's a gallery for each, and you can just look through, and when it's working it'll have a lovely little story underneath that tells you a bit more about who they are and how we connected and what their wisdom is.
I love that.
But you don't need to read that, and this is the joy. You can just sit with the picture and just allow that connection for you to come through from that animal. You don't need to hear what I've picked up, but some people prefer to do it one way or the other, so it's sort of there if you're interested as well. But yeah, and I'm loving trying different mediums, and I'm also loving what I do with all of my art is I donate 10% of the sale price to a connected charity that's supporting and protecting that particular animal. And that was something again
that's beautiful,
that feels really right for me and really important. And a lot of artists say to me, oh, how do you afford to do that? And I said, oh, that's not a case of affording it, it's part of
prioritizing
what I'm doing. Because well, why would I be drawing animals and charging money for it and not honoring the animal that I've actually co-created with, because their survival and their thriving is so important, isn't it? So that's another example of doing something small but that makes a difference. And it makes me feel like, well, every time somebody takes one of these pieces home with them, I'm helping, they're helping, and the animals are getting something positive as a result of it. And to me, that feels really right and really,
and supporting other people who are doing work for animals as well.
Exactly. Yes, all the people that work for these charities, being able to do that and to say, you know, the work you're doing is so important, and you know, we really want to get as many people as possible behind you guys, because you're the ones that are keeping these beautiful beings on the planet, you know, in many cases. So it's all good. It's all good. Do you want to see my not my latest one, but I thought he was a very particularly important one. He's a Scottish wildcat.
Oh wow, he's beautiful.
And interestingly, they're critically endangered in Scotland, and they are now captive breeding to release, which isn't ideal. No. But I can see it's the only option they've got.
Better than the alternative.
Exactly. So I'm supporting that. And he's particularly important because my mum's clan is Macintosh, and the Macintosh clan emblem is the Scottish wildcat.
Oh well, there you go. Oh, beautiful.
So I don't have to talk about it. I start crying because they're just so they're such a wild feline in a relatively small body, but they're so wild. And every time I think of Scotland, I always think of them. And they're so, you know, they're so on the edge right now that it would be a travesty. It would be dreadful if they're lost. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that it's a nice collaboration of organisations that are working together, and they're going to be releasing. Their aim is to release 20 wildcats every year into the Cairngorms, which is their natural range. And they're also working to repair and restore the whole of the Cairngorms as well. So Scotland's actually quite proactive.
That's amazing.
So that's him, and I have a few little cards. So I have a greetings card offering, which is quite nice for pandemic stuff for people writing. So that's the Sumatran tiger. And again, they're critically endangered as well. There's about the same number of them as there are wildcats, interestingly.
Wow.
So that's Fauna and Flora International that I'm donating to for them, who are doing some very good work. And then here's a little graphite. I don't know, can you see these? Okay?
Yeah. No, I can see them perfectly. Wow.
So that's Raven.
Amazing.
And he was
you're so talented. I'm, so impressed. It's just amazing.
He was a little baby. I mean, I made him into an adult, but he was a baby that I found on the road one morning, and he was fledged and sitting on the road, and his parents were all above shouting down at me. And I just said to them, it's okay, I'm going to help. I'm just going to move him off the road. And as I scooped him up in my hands, he was teeny. He had all sheep's wool wrapped around his legs when he couldn't walk. And I'd got a little Swiss Army knife, being a horse girl, on my keys. So I got the little scissors out, and I just said, I'm just going to take the wool off. And he, bless him, he sat there so still. And he looked at me with these beautiful big blue eyes. And I said, it's okay, I promise I'll just take the wool off, and then I'll pop you down here. And I said to him, just let your family know that I'm going to put you in the hedge. And I swear to goodness, he looked straight up and went, and called to them, and I had like this goosebumps, and I just got goosebumps too. Oh, it's so beautiful. And I snipped the wool, which thankfully came off really easily. Nice. And I popped him into the hedgerow, and I just left them be, and he stayed there with his family for the rest of the day, presumably just letting go of the trauma of it, and then the next day he was gone. And the ravens are still, they live locally in the little woods, and I see them often, so I always hope that he's with them, but yeah, so I drew that because of him, which was very magical. So, and then the last one, and then I'll stop sharing, is Mrs. Rabbit, as I call her. So, and she's a garden visitor as well, so she has her warren under our garden and a bit of our house, our cottage. And she's been here, we've been here 8 years, and we've known her for 4. And so every year she raises her babies, and she comes and shows us her babies, and she's just so gorgeous. So amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing those.
Oh, my pleasure. There's lots and lots of different stories that I could share. Maybe we'll do another one at some point.
Well, yeah, I was like, I got other things I want to talk to you about, but we've been 2 hours, so I know. I think we'll end it here. But I'm very, very grateful. Just to mention, and I will put web addresses in the description. Your website address is juleschabeaux.com. I won't try to spell that now. Don't. Because I'll get my E's and my A's and my U's mixed up or something, just confuse everybody. But it will be in the description of the YouTube video. So
it'll be fixed by then.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, this will come out probably in a week. I think I'm planning to do it this weekend.
Okay, hopefully it'll be mended. But if it's not mended, you can still see my work on the shop page as well. So it's still possible.
Yeah. And do you have Facebook and Instagram as well, don't you?
I have a Facebook page, but interestingly, I've been also on Instagram. And the energy, again, for me, seems to have waned from Facebook, and I'm focusing mainly on Instagram. So so if you do follow Instagram, I'm at Jules Chabeaux Artist. So
it's actually, I don't know if it'll come up on the recording, but it's got your name spelt on the...
Oh, yes, yeah.
But is that the right spelling?
No, that's not the right spelling, is it? I just noticed that.
I was like, that's not what I've got for your website.
No, that's not right. It shouldn't have that E in the middle.
No. Okay. Okay, so ignore that.
Maybe put both of the links in the description,
And I will do that. I will do that. Yeah. So thank you so much. This will, I'm sure, be considered part 1, because part 2 will come. Yeah, and we can continue. It's been enlightening, and I'm so grateful for you sharing, the stuff that you went through as a kid, and how you moved through that. It's inspiring, and yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for asking me, and thank you for people listening as well, that they care, and that you are capable of making change happen, and never to doubt that, because we all are, and that's how it happens, isn't it? If we all do something. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Jules. Lots of love to you and to David.
And to you. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching, and see you next time.